What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Built Different podcast. This week, I was joined by Jared Loken, an Ogden local dude who does a lot of photography. He's kind of into the entire motorcycle and art scene around here. And he also has his own brand, Rebel Stock, and his kind of photography business, Jared Loken Photography. You guys should check him out. Look him up. He does some killer photography work and trying to build his brand. So, he's worked with us in the past. He's actually worked for me a little bit. We had some good conversation about motorcycle culture, photography, and everything he's got going on. I really enjoy the dude and everything that he does, so check out all of his stuff. Remember, this podcast is brought to you by tuckerspeed.com, your one-stop shop for all things performance-related on your Harley-Davidson motorcycles. And please, before we get going, leave us a 5-star review, follow the show. Enjoy it.
Making power by day, making friends at night. Built different, Tucker Speed. Hell yeah, brother.
Well, thanks for coming out. This is the earliest, I think this is the earliest podcast we've done.
Yeah.
And, we might have had one earlier, but
Yeah.
most of them are at night, so it's a little different. Drinking coffee instead of beer.
I know when you called, I was like, tell me what you guys drink and I'll bring something. And then I thought about it, I was like, 10:30 is probably a little early.
Some sort of
Yeah.
old man
some
drink.
chocolate milk in the morning.
Sweet. So I was thinking it's kind of a coincidence because our last guest that we just had on last week, Shane Norris,
Oh, yeah. Shane.
is the last guy I talked to.
Oh, okay. Cool.
And you shot his magazine spread for Easy Rider, which I think's cool. I mean, it's kind of a coincidence that we were able to get you guys on back to back. It wasn't planned or anything.
Sure. Yeah.
But
yeah, that was a fun one.
but you're doing a lot of photography, and kind of spread, or kind of creating its own little business with that. Mm-hmm. But how'd that come about with Shane?
With Shane, I'd already, at the beginning of just kind of getting a camera and trying to shoot stuff, I came to one of your guys' bike nights and his bike was out there. I just caught him like when he was pulling out, leaving the show, and I was like, that's a cool shot, and I shot it, and that's kind of what connected me with Shane through
Did
Instagram.
you end up sending him that photo?
Well, so I just creeped everyone on Instagram and was like, oh, that's who on the bike. All right. And then tagged him in it.
Oh, okay.
So, and then,
social media
yeah,
kind of cool that way, but creepy at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, it's helpful because I don't like shooting and not giving credit to those people,
Sure.
So if I can find them and tag them, I'll put them in it.
Yeah.
And that kind of linked us through social media. And then when we started playing around with shooting for our own magazine, then I reached out to him and just said, hey, would you want to shoot your bike and come out and maybe we can feature that in our magazine? So he came out, we shot that up here in Ogden. There's an old service station we shot at, and that was fun. And then our process of getting our magazine together is just taking a while. And
I'm sure it's a big undertaking.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of work.
None of us have done any of that before. So, it's cool. We got a great team coming together, and we all have the same goal, and we all do our own piece of it. But, yeah, it's a huge learning curve for all of us. So, and if we put it out, we want it to be what we want it to be when we do put it out.
Right.
So it'll take some time, but we're getting there. But so then, Shane reached out and just said, hey, I don't know how you, I don't know if that picks up or not. So he reached out to me and just said, hey, I don't know how you feel about it or whatever, but I kind of reached out to these guys over at this magazine and want to get it put in there. How would you feel about shooting for it? And I said, yeah, of course, dude. It's, for me, it's just fun to get my work published in something again is cool.
That's kind of a pretty big deal for a photographer, I think.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I mean,
I think it's cool for you.
It's not unreachable for other people to do if they wanted to, but it is cool to go, cool, now it's in print, you know?
Sure.
And
but
first time...
I mean, you kind of downplay it, but I think for one, you got to buy all the equipment and you got to learn how to use it. You got to shoot quality photos, and then you have to network or start showing people that your work is good, and then network so you have those connections. So there are a lot of pieces that have to happen to reach that. You don't just buy a camera, and then you got to
I mean, you can start there, but you still got to get out and put the footwork in, and I play with
you've done
it.
And, so I think it's cool.
No, it's exciting, definitely. And honestly, the first time we got published in a magazine.
So that wasn't your first one then?
No. So I'd gotten some of my photos put into Choppers magazine.
Oh, okay.
And so we had shot some coverage at the Junction City Chopper show. Mm-hmm. And so some of those guys reached out and said, hey, if you got photos, can you submit them here? And we're trying to get them to cover our show. So I sent those in, but there was I think they ended up publishing 3 of us, the photographers' work, and they put them all in their spread. But they just listed our names, like these are the photographers, but they didn't say whose photo was what, you know.
To who.
And so it was cool to be in there, and I knew which were mine,
right?
And, you know, but
for the average
it
dude,
just is what it is, you know. So,
that's still a good opportunity, a cool opportunity. I'm sure it's with the shooting a show like that. It's hard. Mm-hmm. They probably are trying to gather as many photos as they can from multiple people.
Yeah, definitely.
Whereas, with Shane's deal, you're shooting a bike.
Yeah.
So, but that's still cool.
So Shane's was a cool opportunity for me to know I would be every photo in that spread was my photos. Mm-hmm. So that was cool. And I got to shoot them my way. You know, Shane was really easy to work with. You know, he's you're the artist. You shoot how you want, you know. And
he's easy going.
He's a cool dude for sure.
For sure. And that's why, I mean, when I reached out to him about coming on the podcast, he was just like, why do you want to talk to me? I'm just
sure.
I'm just like a regular blue collar dude, because I have a motorcycle. I mean, and I tried to give him the credit he deserved. I mean, he puts together, that's the second bike he's had in a magazine. Yeah. And he can, he's got an attention to detail, and he's very mechanical.
Yeah. Very humble when it comes to all that, but he definitely knows more than what he'll brag about.
Yeah, for sure. And that's one of the things I like most about him is that he just thinks he's just a regular dude with a motorcycle. And I'm like, well.
He's like.
I didn't even tap. I didn't tap, I swear. Sorry. I'll quit tapping. Sorry, Jordan.
Yeah, no, Shane's a good dude, man. He probably just figures everybody builds that stuff in their garage, but no, he's got a skill for sure, and a talent and a vision. You know, I think the bike he's rolling right now is a gorgeous piece of work. So
for sure,
you know.
Yeah, and it's crazy because he, I learned through that podcast, he's put so many miles on that bike. Yeah. Riding it, not just around town either, like traveling on a 79 FX.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and he's got some cool stories with it. Yeah. Like breakdown stories, where it breaks down, but you got to find a little shop, and just people you meet, it's, and that only comes from getting out and riding those bikes like that. So
that's part of that culture for sure is, if you just want to buy a bike and get from point A to point B as quick as you can, then go buy a brand new motorcycle. Yeah. But I think for some of those guys, some of the adventure is traveling on a machine that probably is going to have problems. Yep. You're probably going to have to hunt down parts or hunt down a shop or whatever. Yeah. And those create pretty cool stories. It might not be fun in the moment.
No, never is.
But it's part of the adventure.
Yeah.
It's, it's like, why do people, climb Mount Everest? Not because it's easy, but because it's,
Yeah, it's the struggle. And then when you're done, you get to say you did it.
Right. It's kind of the same type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think most of those trips probably start out thinking this is going to be a great trip. We're going to see beautiful scenery, and it's not till after you're back. And actually, it's probably not till like a year or two later and you're sitting around talking to people and you reminisce on that breakdown and you're like, oh, yeah.
We've always talked that, the trips that nothing goes wrong, you don't really remember them.
Right.
You don't talk about them a year later.
Yeah.
But the trips that you have issues, you're going to talk about for the rest of your life. You're going to be like, in 30 years, you're going to be, remember that one trip where we broke down in the middle of nowhere or whatever it is?
Yeah.
You just don't forget those times. So does that mean it's a better trip? I don't know. It's tough to say.
I think it's better for like your journey of your life that you're on.
Sure.
Because without those, like how many times have you had a breakdown in your car or something, right? And while you're waiting for stuff, like that's when you're in this most random place, but you end up finding this cool little cafe that you had to stop and eat lunch at where you wouldn't have pulled off the road to eat there.
Right.
But because you had to, like now you're like, dude, that cafe was cool. We should go back sometime.
You find the cafe.
Even though you never do.
You find that, people you'd never talk to.
Yeah.
Even if you only ever have a half an hour conversation with a guy.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have had that opportunity.
Yep.
Kind of goes in line with like what I always say, like motorcycles aren't just a mode of transportation. They're kind of a vehicle to kind of take you through life.
Yeah.
And if you're just riding your motorcycle down the freeway every day, that's not very fulfilling.
Right. Yeah.
But when you start heading out into the desert or into the mountains or whatever, and you have breakdowns and you got to walk 5 miles back to the gas station and talk to the old boy at the counter or whatever it is, that's the stuff that creates stories and creates life moments.
Yeah. And sometimes, I mean, they can be big breakdowns like that too, or had to walk 5 miles. And sometimes like you got your first bike and you're excited, you're going to ride it to work and it dies on you. And you're like, damn, man, I bought a turd, and then you realize you didn't turn your petcock on. So
We've all done that.
Yeah. But you remember it every time. So.
Yeah. So where are you trying to go? Like, other than kind of the magazine, what else are you trying to do with the photography?
So, I mean, that's the hard thing right now is with photography. I just love shooting and I love capturing moments or pieces in time or, documentary photography is like my favorite. So in a lot of ways, I love just going out and doing street photography, like just walking around a certain area and shooting whatever kind of pops up
without
that
even
I think will be cool.
An event or anything.
You just go out there and shoot. It's when I was first learning, I just forced myself to come out to Ogden 25th Street every Saturday.
Oh, okay.
And, because something would change every time. It's like a new group of homeless people would come through and you're like, oh, that looks different. And you'd shoot them, or there'd be like random stickers put on, park benches and stuff. And whatever it is, it's just something will catch your eye and the angle and the lighting will be right. And you go, you know what, that, I don't know, it draws to me. So you shoot it,
Yeah.
So it was like never dull. You never ran out of something new to shoot every time. And we just started a photography club. I got two other buddies that I just call them up, said, dude, you like shooting, I like shooting. Why don't we just meet once a month and we'll, set up like a topic, like your homework that you're supposed to do that month. And we'll shoot that. And then we'll come get together and we'll show our pictures that we did and discuss them. And then we'll spend an hour and go out and do street photography wherever we met, And so like this last time we met at a shop down in Salt Lake. So we just walked around downtown Salt Lake and shot stuff there, And so it's always just fun and different.
The club, does that keep it fun, or does it ever feel like homework? Like,
no, I mean,
like it never is.
The nice thing
I don't want to go do this, but I got to go do it because it's.
Yeah, but if you,
or is it still is it still fun to you?
No, it's always been fun for me. But we keep it very simple. Like we'll just put out a very generic topic. Like one of them was shoot reflections. So there's no like it has to be in a mirror or it has to be, whatever. That's your artist's choice how you want to interpret what a reflection is, right? And so you could shoot a bike off like a puddle or something, or you could do shots in a mirror, or you could have someone sitting on a bench in deep thought, reflecting on their life. You know, it's whatever you want to interpret that
However
is.
you interpret the
bring
word.
it, and then we'll discuss it. You know,
Yeah.
so. But we do find that with all of us working jobs and having life,
Sure.
you know, that it's easy to go a month or two without picking up your camera if you let it, you know. And so in some ways, having the club, you feel obligated, like, oh, damn, I got to go shoot at least 5 pictures, you know,
Yeah.
and bring them. And so it forces you to at least take one day and go out and shoot something, you know.
Isn't that the funny thing that, you know, life just gets so chaotic and hectic that you can go a month or so without doing the thing that you love doing because
Yeah.
you're so wrapped up in the job and
Yeah.
being a spouse and being a parent and
Yeah.
everything that goes along with that you can go that long. I mean, that's
Yeah.
how I feel. I mean, sometimes I feel like riding off-road sometimes is my release, and I rarely do it because I never have time.
Sure.
It's almost like I need a club to force me to go out once a month. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're out there.
You need
If
an
I-
off-road riding club.
Yeah, yeah.
To get
it's like-
with. Yeah.
And they're out there.
Yeah.
There's clubs like that. I've seen them. I found them.
Yeah.
And you can join them. And maybe I should just do it to just force myself. But it's like
Sure.
I always just think, "God, it's too much of a commitment. I got too much stuff going on. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
But-
sometimes that commitment's what you need.
It is,
You know,
for
because
sure.
it's easy to let life get in the way, but like for the photos, and that's why I had to knock it down to like one day a month.
Yeah.
So then you really have time to not rush your project, but
Yeah.
you can, you know, let your inspiration come and then go shoot it. But also then with the family, if I didn't put that out there, it's too easy to go, hey, this weekend, can I go shoot? And go, oh, no, we have this stuff going on, you know. But if you got it planned a month in advance, then it's easy to stick to it. You
Sure.
know? So,
Yeah. Do you have any events, motorcycle events, or any events kind of lined up this year that you're planning on shooting, or anything in the works?
I think this year, I mean, we're definitely going to try and go back out to the party at the Pen out in Boise again. I went to the first 2, and it's a great show. I love being out there. The last time we went last year, we tried to do our like official launch for the magazine stuff. So we had a booth set up and did that for the weekend. But this time it was cool and it was a good event, but it wasn't as fun for me because we were stuck at a booth.
Yeah,
You know, like it's exciting because you're launching your own thing, and so you're there. But this year I was like, man, I just want to go by myself and just walk around and shoot like I did the first year. And,
Yeah.
and then you get to mingle with the people, and that's where I met like some of the best people was at that show, and you just talk to them about their bike and you know, so we're still connected with some of them, and they're in different states, but like we'll shoot them a message every now and then, and even little things like Father's Day pops up, and you're just like, oh yeah, I seen you had a kid, so we'll shoot them a message,
Yeah.
you know, and it's like out of the blue, like who does that, you
Right.
know? But you just make those little connections, and then it just makes life stay, you know, more interesting and fun.
sure.
And so
Yeah. It is funny because we deal with that same thing. I do. You know, you're excited to go to an event. You're like, oh, we're going to set up a booth, and then you find yourself just tied to the booth.
yeah,
And you're like, everybody else is kind of out mingling, having fun, and I'm just kind of stuck
Yeah.
here.
yeah,
And it does get challenging. Like when we were in Four Corners, that was the last one we did. We set up a booth, but you know, at this point, fortunately, I took the whole crew, so there was like, I don't know, 6 or 8 of us or whatever there was.
yeah,
And we ended up just kind of like, because we've done that in the past, and it's just like everybody's at the booth all the time. I was like, why? We don't all need to be here.
yeah,
Like, let's just create like a rotating schedule.
Yeah.
Like, you know, chalk it up into like 2 or 3 hour blocks where
yeah,
you're committed to the booth for this 2 hours. Other than that, you can mingle.
Yeah.
To kind of get the best of both worlds. You still have a booth, and then everybody can mingle
get to
and
mingle, yeah.
network, and that's just it. We do this. I do the same thing. You go to these shows or events or races or whatever, and just make connections with people. You know, that you just never would.
yeah,
You know, you stay in communication with them through texting or social media or whatever,
yeah,
and it's just cool because you meet people from different walks of life that enjoy the same stuff you enjoy, though.
yeah,
And it's cool.
definitely, yeah.
So
Yeah, no, I think that's probably the funnest part of what we've been doing, and even just starting photography in general. Like for a long time, I always had social anxiety, so it was always hard to like find a reason to go talk to people, or even feel like you had a place where you're at talking to them. But for whatever reason, like as soon as I had that camera in hand, it was like, no, I got a reason to be here. Like I'm just shooting this bike. And, like as soon as you do that, like it just opens doors, and then you meet people, and those doors for whatever reason open up to other paths also, and you're like, man, that's cool. And had we not like went that direction, we wouldn't have met half the people that we met now, and I mean, just little things like even the time we spent here with you guys, but then getting to do the bagger race, like that led to getting to talk to Jason Pullen a little bit, and he's doing cool stuff. But it's like, man, if we weren't out here shooting this with you guys, I wouldn't have got to meet him and talk to him for a little bit, and his wife's super cool. Like, so if you shoot them a message, they're super
Pretty
humble also,
and
they'll get right back to you and be like, oh yeah, thanks, So it's awesome running into those people where if you just go to an event and you're just in the crowd, like it almost distances a lot of those people from you,
a little bit.
So
I found it interesting because I feel that same thing. I feel like because I used to go to some shows or rallies or whatever, kind of before I opened the shop, and you just kind of feel like you're just part of the crowd. You're not really kind of like felt like there was the crowd and then the industry. And there's like a line there that you for whatever reason. But I feel like over the years of now kind of being on the industry side and getting to know a lot of the industry people, there are people that are just there to attend the event that have crossed that line. And they're part of the industry, even though they don't have a shop or they don't have a brand or they're like event regulars.
Sure.
They're everywhere. And some of it, I'll admit, some of it I think is social media, that they're putting themselves out there a lot in social media. And then when they show up to an event,
they're
people
already
recognize
like a
them.
self-made celebrity.
A little bit. Yeah. But I think it's interesting because I was the same way. I mean, I had, some social anxiety issues. I still do. I mean, believe it or not, sitting here as a podcaster,
Sure.
I struggled that same way. Like I would go to an event just as a regular dude, and I felt like I wasn't supposed to be there. I was like in the way, and I wouldn't just walk up and talk to people.
Right.
And I had to like buy my way into the industry to make myself feel comfortable.
Sure. Yeah.
In a sense,
Yeah, it's like once you, in a way, feel like you've kind of proven your ability or something. Like, I can keep up with what you guys are doing.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. It's tough, but I don't know. So we're going to be doing I don't want to talk too much about it on the podcast. I'll just tease everybody, but we are doing an art show this summer.
Cool.
And I'll get you more details and stuff, but
sure,
if you're available, I'd love to have you involved with that too.
Yeah.
Because we got some really big plans for it. And I think it's going to be a super cool event, motorcycles and art.
Yeah.
And
Jordan told me a little bit about it before the podcast, so we can talk after.
Yeah,
but,
I just don't want to talk too much on the podcast because we don't have specific details on.
Yeah.
I guess we can say the date. Yeah, the date's
the important part.
June 7th. It's a Friday. It'll be a Friday night.
Cool.
And it's going to be happening at the same time as the 25th Street Car Show.
Okay.
And so we're going to be on 25th, but just down the street at the Monarch.
Yeah.
And so hopefully we can put on just, I'm hoping that our show is cooler than the car show is the goal.
Yeah. Car show will be cool, man. It's been going for a long time.
Yeah, for sure. And the car show has its place, and it's way cool. It's just we got a lot of really cool ideas, and I think it's going to be a cool event.
Yeah.
And I think adding the art side to it is going to be the coolest part because we've all been to, bike shows, I mean, I've been to motorcycle art shows out of state, but that's what I want to bring to Utah is something that wraps all of that culture together.
Yeah.
You know, photography, pinstripers, tattoo artists, painters, you know, whatever it is you're doing, any sort of artistic form that's kind of centered around this culture, we want to wrap it all up into one event.
Yeah, it's all lifestyle. So bring it in. It's weird how, you know, because actually when we were working on doing the magazine, that's exactly what we found. We originally started with saying it's going to be a vintage chopper magazine, but there's so much cool stuff that ties into that lifestyle with the tattoos, the music, you know, I found, just like me, I started skateboarding as a kid, and then as you get a little older, you're like, well, I don't want a car, I want a motorcycle, you know? And there's a ton of people that skateboarded and then now build cool bikes, you know? And so there's just that connection there, and I don't know if it's like just the way a lot of us view the world, you know, or maybe it's grown up on punk music, just kind of puts you there, you know?
I think it is, because I mean, it's so common. Like almost everybody I talk to, they did some sort of form, you know, some form of, you know, I don't want to say extreme sports. I mean,
standard.
You know, they didn't grow up
basketball.
playing, you know, tennis and then start building choppers. I don't know. I haven't met that guy yet. You know?
There's probably one or two. But
I'm sure they're out there, but but yeah, it just seems very common that all of us that grew up in the 70s, 80s, 90s, skateboard, BMX, punk music, even motocross. There's a lot of motocross kids that you know aren't racing motocross anymore, but they still love motorcycles and riding and found themselves on Harleys. Yeah, whether it be new stunt bikes or performance baggers or choppers or whatever. I mean, that's the cool thing about the culture is that there's so many different genres within kind of the American V-twin market. You know?
Yeah. Well, and all of them, if you looked at it, they're all their own art form, really. So it's just their view of building something they think looks cool and the lifestyle they want to live and going out and doing it. Yeah. So I think that's that same mindset you had with punk music or skateboarding. You know, it's that freedom to just go out and go, I'm going to do it this way. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing in skateboarding where there isn't just skateboarding. Like if you're into skateboarding, there's all kinds of different types of skateboarding, whether you ride, you know, skate parks or half pipe or street or, you know, whatever it is. You like, you know, going out and finding some random rail at the government building, you know what I mean? Like whatever it is. And so there's all these different ways to kind of express or do what you're doing. And just like in the Harley world, you might be a chopper guy and you might hate new bikes.
Yeah, sure.
And it's probably the same way in the skateboarding world where, you know, some guys might say like half pipe's the truest form or street, you know, is like the truest because like that's where it all started. Yeah. You know, and so I mean, for me, as far as motorcycling goes, there's all these different genres and I dig all of them, man. Yeah. You know, I don't hate on any. I think there's a place for all of it.
Yeah, I'd agree. You know, I think when I was younger, you kind of pick and choose like what's cool, what's dorky, whatever. But then, you know, there was times that you just be at a buddy's house and hop on his scooter and zip around and goof off. And one day you just realize, like, dude, I don't care what it is. It's fun. Like on everything that's two wheels. Like, you can have a good time on it. For you know? Doesn't mean I want to go buy a scooter and own one. You know, but I have no problem with the dudes who do have it. Like, at least that dude's out riding. Yeah. You know?
I think there's always just this weird battle between kind of the chopper scene and the new age kind of, you know, Dyna performance. It seems like Dyna and performance bagger and FXRs, I don't know, FXRs kind of bridge the gap maybe. But there's like this line between like you have to pick, you're either a chopper guy or you're a Dyna bro. Yeah. And you can't be both at the same time.
I think they're all just like, I do agree to a certain extent, I guess, like you'll see trends that pop up. And if you can see that this is a trend and everyone's hopping on board and they're just following it because it's a trend, then to me, I'll kind of lose some following there. Like I just don't
Not
dive
super
into it too
into it.
much because in 5 years it's going to be out the door,
Sure. We've all seen those trends. I mean,
Yeah.
the late 90s, early 2000s choppers, big wheel baggers,
Yeah.
that stuff is kind of come and gone.
The weird thing, though, is at the very beginning stage of those choppers, I still liked them.
I did too. I hate them now,
Give
but
it 2 or 3 years into that scene, and people are trying to outdo it and make wheels bigger and fatter, and then it just got goofy.
Well, yeah, and if you take the chopper, the 2000s chopper craze, if you look at the bikes that were being built in 2000 and the bikes that were being built in 2010, they're a lot different too.
Yeah.
If you actually look at the motorcycles.
Yeah.
And I liked the early ones. I totally agree. And in 2001, I wanted one. I wanted to build one.
Yeah.
Now I can't stand them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there's a lot of them now that I'm like, this got big and goofy and ugly.
Yeah.
But I still, if I could find one, I'd still buy a West Coast Chopper CFL frame.
Yeah, for sure.
Like that's still
It's funny that one
like
is
a perfect
stayed
dimensions,
relevant.
Yeah.
That for whatever reason that one is, and I would buy that frame or that bike even if I had the opportunity to buy one that was already built, I would buy one that has that frame because they're not easy to find.
No.
But if you gave me a big dog, I would give it right back. Yeah. So, and that's the difference. I mean, and there's choppers, everywhere in between. And then the vintage stuff is cool.
Yeah. Vintage is cool because the motor itself always just looks like a piece of jewelry sitting there. Even if it's old and crusty, it's still that motor itself just is a cool piece of art, and then of course the more you polish it up and stuff, the cooler it gets. But
and that's the beauty in it is you can dress it up and doll it up however you want. You polish the entire thing to a chrome-like finish.
Yeah.
You paint that thing black.
Yeah.
You just leave it all rusty and nasty. You do whatever you want to, and it's still cool.
Yeah.
And then there's the time factor, the vintage factor that is just makes them cool. The older it is, kind of the more rare it is, and cooler it is. Like, shovel heads are cool, but a pan head's even cooler, and a knuckle head's even cooler than that. You know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've been like, if I was going to do a chopper right now, like for the longest time, it always seemed like knuckle was like the pinnacle. But I think I would build like an early big twin flathead, like a 30s or 40s, like 74 or 80-inch flathead. I just feel like I've seen some choppers done with that.
Yeah.
And I don't know. They're kind of cool.
I have a buddy that's got one, but it's like a trike, like has the
like a
cargo
Survey car?
thing. Yeah. And I keep telling him he needs to do like a Cholo style with it and airbag the back so you can just pull in and
just drop it on the frame.
Yeah, lay it down. Yeah, it'd be cool, but I don't know if he'll do it or not.
Well, I'm sure you can do anything you want.
Yeah.
You have enough money or enough skill.
Yeah.
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 But the Survey cars are cool. I always thought the Survey cars were cool in the 45. So they're a 45-inch motor. And they made those things forever. You can actually find those. They're pretty, I don't want to say common, but there's more of the 45-inch versions than the big twin versions.
Okay.
And I'll get this wrong, and someone will correct me on it, but the 45-inch flathead was the longest produced engine that Harley ever made. They were making it from like the 30s into the late 70s.
Well,
and they produced it.
Carried that same motor all through like World War II and stuff because
in different capacities, and mainly because it was, at first it was a two-wheeler, and then it became Survey car or trike or and it was serving a purpose, and that's why they continue, because they phased out the big twin flatheads with the knucklehead, with the, the overhead valve stuff.
Yeah.
But the 45 that they kept using in the, these bikes that were being sold to the post office and,
Was it just a solid power plant that?
I think it was just reliable, and it was just something that it didn't need a ton of power. It just needed to like serve a purpose of transporting mail or a meter maid or a delivery device, an auto parts delivery or whatever. They were selling them as a utility vehicle. So it wasn't ever, that's why it stayed in production, I think, for so long, is that it was it was a utility vehicle, not the biggest motor that they could offer. Because the knucklehead kind of trumped that, and that's why they phased out the big twins. But the big twin flatheads are a lot more rare. You could go on like eBay right now and probably find 10 45-inch flatheads.
Yeah.
But good luck finding a big twin.
Yeah, sure.
So that's why I was just like, that's probably the coolest one, I think, right now.
Yeah.
If I was going to build a chopper, that's what I would want to build it on.
That's cool. Yeah. I like the idea too, because I think a lot of people look and go, it's only a 45, and so they're little, you're not going to get a ton of power or whatever out of it. But a lot of the choppers I've been watching now are like from Japan or Indonesia and stuff, and they're all running like little 400cc motors.
Oh, yeah.
But they're just like stretching them and making them super skinny. But you watch them ride and they're just having a blast on them,
Have you seen that stuff in Japan where they do those meets where they have like, I think they're like inline fours or maybe like parallel twins, and they have those competitions where they like rev them up?
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen that?
No. Are you talking about with like all the fairings and stuff on their bikes?
Yeah, they have like
and
the
all
super
that.
tall fairings and stuff, and all the different decorations.
Even that, like, it's super goofy, like very Japanimation feel.
Oh, for sure.
But
because they're like
love
all dressed
that,
up in costume and all this stuff, and they just like.
But I love the aspect that they completely geek out on it, and it's like a whole thing.
It's like a whole subculture over there that just doesn't exist anywhere but there.
Yeah, yeah.
And they have the craziest things over there.
I think Estevan Oriol, the photographer out of L.A., I think he put a book out on that.
Oh,
I think
really?
he went over and shot a bunch of that culture and put it out.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll have to check that out, because I just stumbled across some of the videos like on Instagram and stuff, and I'm like, this is insane. And it's like I get sucked into it, and I'm like, and then after a while, I'm like, what am I watching? But I just have to keep watching, and I'm just like,
yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's almost like going to Comic-Con or something, but for bikes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
They're
I think
so
it's
wild.
cool. Like, it's a culture. I don't really understand that subculture.
Yeah.
But I do think it's really cool just from the art aspect of like where these people's brains are, But I bet people thought the same thing in like the 70s with all the psychedelic, acid trip bikes that we had
For
too.
sure.
It's you probably would look and go, what was that guy thinking? But but they're cool now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So do you have a bike right now?
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
My same story for like 12 years,
You got a bike.
Always got projects.
Yeah.
We did get to where I just downsized everything, but we still kept that 73 iron head.
Oh, okay.
So, and that one actually is kind of weird because it needed a new frame. So I just like pulled the motor and set it on the side for a long time. And I came across a frame on KSL and went down and got it. And the guy was like, well, we got it from a shop that closed. And so I don't know anything about it other than like I have the frame and I have this book that like had a picture of it when it was completely put together, and it had ran out at the salt flats one time. And so I was like, well, that's kind of cool, but you don't know anything like numbers he ran, nothing on it,
Just that it was there?
Yeah, just that it had been there. It was built for that. And then their shop shut down. Everything got sold off or something, right? And so I was like, all right, that's cool. And so I took the book and had the picture with it and took the frame home, and it just kind of sat also.
Yeah.
And then years later, when I was doing, getting into photography, I had to go in my office and look for something. And I came across that binder, and the picture was there. And at that time now, then I had an Instagram set up. So I was looking at the picture, and I was like, man, I wonder if this guy there's like a helmet next to the bike on the workbench, and it had handwritten on it, Salt Pilot or something, right? And I was like, I wonder if on the odd chance that dude started an Instagram on that name, you know? And so I looked it up, and sure enough, there's a guy, and it looked like he had some stuff. I don't remember. He might have been a private account, so I couldn't see if he did the bike or not.
Oh, yeah.
But I just shot him a message and was like, hey, way random, you know, on the odd chance, do you recognize this picture? And I sent him a picture of that bike. And he messaged back within like 20 minutes and was like,
really?
holy shit, dude, where'd you find that? You know, he's like, can you call me? And I was like, yeah, sure. So me and him got talking about it. He's like, yeah, I did. I ran it out the flats and, you know, ran these numbers. I don't remember them now. I get the specs later, but I was like, that's cool. And then the more we got talking, he was like, yeah, you know, that was the first one that I built and did it out of this shop in Salt Lake, and it's over in this area. And I was like, wait a minute, where was your shop? You know, and started talking about that. And his shop that he built that bike in is the same exact shop that me and some buddies had opened for our first bike shop in Salt Lake.
Oh, really?
And I was like, dude, that's weird.
That's a
that
small
like
world.
everything came full circle, you know, built the same shop. And so he must have just left. I think he was the guy in there right before my buddies got it. And then I came in when they had already been in there for about a year. So, but it was just weird how all that lined up. And I was like, all right, well, I guess we'll run with this frame. You know, it's at least got a little bit of history.
Right
and
on. That's cool.
You know, so we still have that still in pieces. But we did just get a 74 Ford van that we're going to try and build up. And with that one being the 73, I think it'll be cool to build the two as kind of a matching set. And
period correct combo.
yeah, and I mean the frame's like super low and it's a little long because you know he built it for the salt flats.
Yeah,
but I think I'll like keep some of his dimensions and stuff, but build it more like a 70s drag bike or something.
Right
and because with the Iron Head, I don't want to go ride it all the time anyway. But if we can build it, you know, a cool style and build it for the drag strip, I'll probably go to Idaho or something and run it once, you know, and just to see what it'll do, and then it'll probably come sit.
Speaking of like vintage bikes, have you ever heard of that I think they call it the Colt 45 motor that a dude was building? It's like
was the Colt 45 a bike motor?
It was a Harley. It was a combination Harley motor. I can't remember the dude that built it, and I should know. But if I remember right, comment if you know the answer to this, please. But I think it's a 45-inch flat head bottom end with iron head
top end
pistons and cylinders, and obviously I'm pretty sure there was some machining involved.
Sure.
To make it all work together, but this dude built it, and he built like some drag bikes with this motor, and it was like super badass and like super bulletproof. For whatever reason, like the 45-inch bottom end was better. I can't remember the whole story, but that'd be something cool to do too.
I haven't seen the Colt 45, but I have seen people do like the shovel head top end on the iron head bottom end.
That's cool.
So that would actually be cool to do that and then take the top
there's
end from the
articles
iron
out
head.
there about the dude who built, because there's actually a bike in the Harley Museum, like one of his bikes with that motor in it.
The Colt 45.
That Colt 45.
Okay.
I mean, it's pretty well known.
Yeah.
I mean,
it'd be cool to look up specs and see what he had to do.
it'd be cool to replicate one of those, because that's something that like you almost never see another one.
Yeah.
Like if you could figure out how to make it happen, it'd be badass.
Yeah.
That'd be way cool.
Well, if you find a bottom end and you have shovel head top ends, I'll just switch you my top end.
All right. Yeah. We've known each other for quite a few years now.
Yeah.
I never really heard the story, and you know, I knew you had a shop, but it kind of just reminded me of it when you were talking about it. I never really heard how that all came about, and what was this time frame?
I think it was like 2013 probably. So, because I went to Salt Lake Community College and did their small engine motorcycle course. And that's where I met Danny and Tom, which is who had that shop in Salt Lake. So we went to class together. They graduated before I did because they had started a semester before me. So I did a second semester after they had left. So then when I graduated and got out, then I think I'd hit them up and just was seeing how everything was going for them, you know. And they had already moved into a shop space, and it was just a little, like, basically rundown shop. And they knew the guy that owned the space, so they just rented from him every month. And they weren't really trying to turn it into, like, a big shop. They would just get, like, their bikes and their buddies' bikes and make a little bit of cash here and there, you know. And Tom had, I think he got in a motorcycle accident and hurt his wrist or something. He broke it. But he had like 4 or 5 customer bikes there that he couldn't work on, but they were supposed to get back to the customer. And so I just hit him up and I was like, well, dude, if you want me to go down and help you guys out, I'll come turn a wrench for you and get you caught up and get their bikes back to them, you know. And so went down there and did it. And I was there maybe a couple weeks or something just helping out. And then they were like, well, dude, why don't you just like join us? We'll just split rent 3 ways and you can bring your work in that you want to bring in. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. So we, at the time, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just knew like need to make some cash on the side and wanted to work on bikes, you know, and I didn't have like shop experience. So even though I'd graduated the class, like I couldn't just go get into Harley and stuff just from graduating from Slick. So I just posted ads like on KSL for small engine mechanic stuff, you know, and that would come in. It was a lot of like diagnosing electrical stuff or doing carbs, you know, cleaning carburetors after every winter. you know, it's you just clean a carb and get it back to them, you know. But at the time, I was like just taking anything and everything. So we'd have like a rototiller come in, and
that's what I was going to ask. Was it just motorcycles, or were you working on anything?
I mean, I wanted it to be motorcycles, but I also wanted, you know, $50 for cleaning a carb, you know. So I posted on the ad like, whatever small engine stuff, bring it in, we'll work on it, you know. But then quickly, I was like, I just wanted to do fabrication work, and so then other stuff would just sit, and I'm like, man, I know I should clean your carburetor, but I'm busy welding up a license plate bracket, you know, or whatever. So that just hit a point that I was like, yeah, I gotta have these people come pick up their stuff, and then like traveling back and forth to Salt Lake. We live like 45 minutes away, so doing that every day, and you know, it just built up that I was like, I don't know, man, we'll just go get a job somewhere else. Yeah. So, you know,
but was that your full-time gig at the time?
Like no, work, so me and my wife, we were running a nutrition club out of Layton also.
Oh, okay.
So, but the way we worked that, like she was doing all the, you know, face of the company. She'd be there every day working with our clients and stuff. And I was helping her on all the back end with the numbers and ordering stock and keeping everything running from the backside. So that opened up to where I could go down and do the mechanic side and
make some money
do that
way.
So,
right on.
But I mean, trying to build one business is hard enough, and then trying to do 2 at the same time, it doesn't work, you know.
And then you have kids and.
Yeah, we had 1 kid at the time, so we were still doing like school for him and you know, all sorts of stuff. And yeah, like we had no money, so we're like doing both businesses off one phone, you know. And so we're like deciding who gets the phone today, you know,
or how you answer it when someone calls.
Yeah. So it was, you know, tough for a minute, you know, but it was fun. It was a good experience.
Nutrition companies like, is my lawnmower ready?
Yeah, or you like know like certain people, you know, that were calling, and you go, okay, I got to remember to tell her when I get home, get back to this customer, you know. And so it's or she would get calls like, oh, can you work on this, you know? And she's like, I got to ask my husband, you know. So
no, that's awesome. I mean, that's just you and your wife have done a lot of stuff together.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I mean, we've, you know, you're always bouncing to the next thing, trying to figure out what it is, where our life lands, what's going to be us and our future.
Sure.
And I don't think we're ever afraid to just try stuff. We knew we didn't really want to be an employee long term for people. But I don't know, looking at it now, it looks pretty cushy. So,
it definitely has its days for sure.
Yeah.
But there's a certain sense of freedom, kind of not being an employee, working for yourself.
Yeah.
That is also nice at times.
Sure.
But then when it comes down to like, who's going to pay the bills? We're short on money, or we got to get this done, or I have to solve that problem. You can't just send it up the line or pass it off to somebody.
Yeah. When you can't go, well, I'm out of time, I'm clocking out.
Yeah.
Deal with it tomorrow.
No.
It's definitely helps you troubleshoot stuff. It
sure.
like forces you to figure out answers to things, which is
definitely
good.
Just learn how to figure stuff out because there's no other option. There isn't I don't know how to fix this. I'll just give it to the boss and let them deal with it. None of that.
Yeah, I think it gives you a different perspective too. Like when you do go back and work as an employee, like you understand.
You empathize with the boss or manager or lead or whoever it is.
Yeah.
Business owner, whoever it is.
I think in a way, before you run your own business, you just kind of assume like money's just naturally there.
Yeah.
Right? Like they're going to pay you because you worked, so they have to.
Right.
But when you go back after working your own business, you understand like, all right, this guy needs me to do X amount of work just so he can afford to pay me what my hours are.
Yeah.
But it's not worth his time to pay me if that's all I'm bringing him.
What's the
he's going to
point?
have to make a profit too.
If you make $100 and I pay you $100,
yeah,
I'm in the same boat if I wouldn't have done that transaction today.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So you always have that in the back of your head, like, all right, I probably got to get through this much work today at least, and if I can do more, need to do more, you just have a different perspective.
I think, I think once you realize that, and then, you realize that makes you it's such a valuable asset as an employee to be able to look at things in that lens. But you can't really look at it in that lens unless you've been in that position.
Yeah.
And I think fortunately for me, I learned that pretty early on, because my first job ever was working for my dad. And, he was really good about kind of taking me in early and kind of teaching me the ropes of like running a small business.
Yeah.
So when I ventured out into the world on my own, the first job I had that wasn't for him, I was looking at things that way. And I don't think I realized it back then at 23, 24 years old or whatever it was. But looking back now, it's like I don't ever think I looked at it any other way but that way.
Sure.
Which I think is,
if
it's
you
helped
grew
me.
up, where you grew up, where your dad always had his own business, you probably kind of naturally just seen like whether him coming home and talking about work or little things, like you're naturally going to pick up on that anyway, I think. But like for us, we, my mom and dad didn't do that. He was always, my dad was either in the military or working as an employee for someone. So even that, the mindset's just different.
It's different. I mean, if you grow up and your parents work for the government their whole life, I mean, they're going to get paid no matter what they did that day.
Sure.
They could have clocked in and played solitaire for 8 hours and they're still going to get a paycheck.
Right.
And that just starts to be kind of ingrained into your kids, I think.
Yeah.
And I think it was the opposite
like
for
to
me.
a degree, it's like you start thinking, how many hours will they let me clock in for,
Before
and
I
pay
actually
me?
have to do something.
Yeah. Well, or just like, how do you calculate how much money you're going to make? Is like, are you going to pay me this much per hour and then give me 40 hours a week? Then you start calculating your budget,
Yeah, right.
As opposed to how productive can I be and get paid off that production,
Right.
Then it's just different.
it's
You can
different.
shift it different.
It's definitely different. And I think it's definitely valuable. I know that like when you came and worked here with us for a while, and other guys that I know, some people look at it and they understand it. Like Fred, who works for me now, like he had his own shop at one time. He ran a shop for a long time, and he understands things that like some of the other guys that come in and have never, worked for themselves. They just don't look at it the same. Doesn't mean one's better than the other. They just look at it with a different lens.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's helpful for them to look at it from the perspective of the owner or whatever, because they understand what I'm trying to get out of them, and they understand why.
Yeah.
I'm not just, I'm not saying you need to do X amount of work today to be a dick.
Sure.
It's just like, that's just what the, that's what the money says. The numbers don't lie. It's like, you got to do this much so that I can afford to pay you this much.
Yeah.
And if you don't do this much, I can't afford it. It's plain and simple. So
if you want your Christmas bonus.
The joys of running a business. I mean, I don't think I could do it any other way. I mean, I worked 8 years in the dealership.
Yeah.
And it was great. I think I went into the dealership always looking at it from the top down, kind of like as an owner would. And I think that's why I was so successful there and kind of climbed and did well there, is because I had that mindset. I wasn't the type just to clock in and kind of just do what I had to do to get through the day and clock out and go home.
Sure.
It was always like, what can I do to help further the cause? What can I do to, maybe change this up, maybe make this process better or more efficient so that we can get more done in a day.
Yeah.
And that's the things you have to do when you're running a business.
Yeah.
You can't just clock in and go through the motions.
Yeah.
You know where you'll end up. Yeah.
Yeah. Business goes away pretty quick.
For sure. For sure. So,
Yeah.
do you ever miss working on bikes?
Yeah, to a degree. I mean,
You got your own projects you can always go tinker on. But
I mean, I was never, or at least I never felt like I was that great of a mechanic, especially like as an employee. I was never good enough to be productive at a level that a shop probably needed, right? And so, and I know a lot of that just comes with time and doing it over and over,
you are. I think you're definitely the perfectionist type. Or very methodical, or...
I mean, when it came to the bikes, you always have that respect that, like, someone, when they take this, their life is on that, So I don't want to risk them bringing it back. And then if it does come back, because you're like, oh, you forgot to tighten up this thing, you, feel horrible that you're like, damn, I missed that step,
Yeah.
And so I would want to make sure every step was done, and done correct so it didn't come back. But then that slows your process down too. So until you get quick enough at that. So I liked working on it and I liked the environment. I just never felt like I was productive enough at the level to justify being, or to feel like, yeah, I'm a good asset for that shop. Right. But I always liked working on them and tinkering on them. And so I think it was better for me to just go, you know what, I probably need to get out of the bike world for a job and figure out a way to keep that as a hobby.
Yeah.
And so when I left the base, then we toyed with the idea, well, do we call Tucker Speed again and see if they need an employee, or do we go to Surge Hydraulics, and we talked about it, and I was like, man, probably the best step is go to Surge, and because if I came back here, I also knew my mindset would be wanting to get back into my own bike and stuff too. And then that becomes the priority. How do you get a bike and how do you get on the road again? And I knew at that time I left the base so I could pursue photography, and that's where I need to put my focus, and so as fun as it would have been to come back here, it's, I just knew the right step for you guys and the right step for me was to just not have it be an employee thing,
Sure.
So,
well, there is always that, fine line of turning your hobby into work. Yeah. And then all of a sudden your hobby's not a hobby anymore.
Yeah.
You don't enjoy it. And that's the nightmare I live in every day at this point,
Sure.
I still love it. sometimes I have to take a step back and remind myself of that, or try and search for different things that get me excited again.
Yeah.
But it is definitely work.
Yeah. Well, and if you can find your joy in that work, like you're always going to have pieces of the work you're not going to like, right? And we found this with like the photography. I love going out and shooting the bikes and the cars and working on a project, you know, so putting a book together or the magazine, whatever. All that's fun stuff to go shoot. But it doesn't always bring you money and bring money right away. And so you have to do like family portraits and senior photos, you know, and all the stuff that can still be fun in its own way. But I correlated those to like in the bike shop, that's your oil changes and your tire changes, right? Like they're not bad. They're easy enough to do.
You do them.
They're just not that fun when you do 10 of them in a day.
You're not going to wake up this morning and be excited to do 10 of them. But you know, at the end of the day, you'll have some money in your pocket.
Yeah, yeah. And if that's what you do to keep the lights on, and then that allows you to go build that custom bike, well, then go do that, you know. And so I think for you, like, I know you geek out on, like, the tech side of stuff, so I'm sure the service stuff isn't the best, but you can whip it out pretty quick. But then if that gets you to where now you get to go do dyno tuning for a couple days, I'm sure you love that aspect of it, you know? So even though that's work itself too. You know?
And I've had some conversations with some guys, because like when I was at the dealership, all I ever wanted to do was be a full-time dyno tuner. Like that's where I wanted to get to.
Yeah.
And I knew that once I got my own shop, eventually when I had the money, I wanted to buy my own dyno. And eventually if all I could do is dyno tune every day, that was my goal. Well, and I'm there, and I've been doing that now for probably 2 years. Really, that's all I do here anymore is I kind of manage and oversee everything in the shop. And then what I'm doing to produce income is just dyno tuning. So now it's like I spend every day in the dyno room. And even now that is getting, I need you know, something new. You know,
something else to stimulate the brain.
Right. Because it's like, and I still love it. I still, you know, I still enjoy doing it. And it's still a challenge. I mean, there's still things that I'm learning and trying new things and, you know, trying to figure out how to make a bike run a little better, a little cooler, or whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. Is fun. I still push myself like in the fabrication side, like, you know, welding, machining, you know, that side of stuff. That stuff has always been very challenging to me. It hasn't come very natural. I've never worked in an environment that is, you know, a fab shop. I've never seen any of that stuff done. So I'm trying to just
figure it out as you go.
And it's very challenging. So that's the stuff that when I need to be challenged, that's kind of my go-to.
Yeah.
And my fabricating skills have come a long ways in the last 5, 6, 8 years, whatever. I mean, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, I didn't even know how to weld. Now I feel like I can weld pretty decent.
Right.
You know, I have a mill, a lathe. I can make a few parts here and there. All just self-taught. But it's just because I have to find something that kind of stimulates me in a way that, like, you know, I'm learning, I'm challenging myself, you know. So
can't sit stagnant for sure.
I have a hard time sitting still, and you know, sometimes Tori's like, why is it that you're always trying something new? And here I am, you know, trying to be a podcast guy now too. Like, I haven't even perfected any of that stuff yet.
Right.
So
that's just kind of the world we're in now, though. Like, you still got to keep up on all that stuff too. So
and I think, you know, the nice thing is at least everything that I'm doing all kind of feeds back into each other. It's not like what I need to challenge myself is like in a totally different market or world or whatever. Everything I'm doing is still at the center of it is motorcycles. So that's the one good thing. So it's good that way. Well, what else do you got going on this year?
This year, I don't know. I mean, nothing
crazy,
super big or crazy.
Oh, I forgot. I was going to ask you about Salt Lake Community College and the small engine repair. How was it? Because I went through MMI. That was it's a lot different than, a community college small engine repair class.
Yeah.
I'm just always curious because I've talked to guys that have gone through it, other guys that, have applied. Do you think how much of it is like motorcycle and how much of it is just general engine knowledge?
So when you're in class for the class part, then it's all like engine theory and stuff. So for someone who didn't grow up with any kind of mechanical background or surrounded with anything like that, getting that was a good solid foundation. It just opens your eyes to like, oh, this is what the engine's doing on the inside, and everything's kind of based around like getting stock stuff to run and keep it running, you know? So there wasn't a ton of in the book for like how to branch into like performance stuff, right? But the instructor we had, Bill Breedlove, he did a lot of racing and stuff growing up. Always did a bunch of boat stuff. Had been working on engines since he was like 8 or something. So he during class would always go off on little tangents, anyways, and you got a ton of extra knowledge just from his experience and his stories.
That's cool.
And so you probably couldn't ask for a better instructor for that class.
So was there just one instructor for the entire course?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And then when you went into shop, then you could kind of pick and choose what pathway you were wanting to go. So do you want to go more in the motorcycle field, or do you want to do more small engine maintenance, like go do lawnmowers and stuff, right? And there was a little bit of aquamarine stuff too.
Okay.
But no one really picked that.
Nobody wants to work on that stuff.
Yeah. And so when you went that path, then the school would bring in projects from people. And so if you wanted to go motorcycles, then that's what they'd have you work on. If you wanted to go small engines, you would get all that stuff, right? And of course,
Still
most
the
of
same
us
instructor?
wanted. Yeah, yep, same instructor.
Okay.
And the weird thing is like all engine theory is the same, on a gas engine. So if you understand, okay, it's carburetors doing this, pistons doing this, whatever, you could figure all that stuff out, but it's all basic knowledge now, right? So a lot of that was a great foundation for where I was and where I was coming from. And so I think it helped. And
because you didn't really grow up with a mechanical
Yeah, not really.
upbringing?
I mean, my dad did, he always fixed our own car unless it was something major like a transmission, but every time we'd have like a belt break or something, he'd be out there doing it. And, so you'd like watch what he was doing, but he wasn't into like anything performance-y or racy or anything. So we didn't grow up like him building an engine in the garage or anything,
right?
And so our best knowledge was like, how do you maintain a car when it breaks, and you just learn little things here and there, but not enough. Like I could change my oil and my brakes, but that's kind of where you're at, you know? And I always wanted to get into more stuff like go-karts or race stuff or bikes, and there wasn't anyone ever around us to really gain that knowledge from, and so doing that course, I think, was a huge help. But you still walk out of there not having all the knowledge, and even like carburetors, it was like you learned enough. I could pass the test and get my certificate, and you worked on some stuff. But then when you got out, it wasn't until I cleaned like my 10th carburetor that I'm like, oh, this is starting to click with some of these ports and stuff, what they're doing. But because of having that classwork that we went through, I at least had a foundation to fall back on and make those pieces connect. But
it's like a matter of like they teach you the theories in the basic principles, but you kind of have to go out there and experience that on even different types of carburetors. But then you start realizing like, oh, this theory that they taught us is the same in all these different applications.
Right. Yeah.
And you're like, oh, wow. And then it starts to all make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it was a great foundation. I would still recommend the course to anyone up in this area who wants to get started.
Really?
Like, take the course. It's a great course. You'll have a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah.
Well, granted, I don't know if they still run it now. I know Bill's retired and he
really?
moved back to Virginia, I think. So I don't know if someone else took over and is doing the course now, or if they just got rid of it. I don't know.
Hopefully they are, because I mean, we need kids learning that stuff in the world.
Yep.
Somebody's got to fix all this stuff.
Yeah.
Even if it is lawnmowers and snowblowers and chainsaws or cars, motorcycles or whatever, somebody's got to continue to fix all this stuff, because we're all getting older.
I think someone will somewhere. It may not be through Slick, but someone up here's got to be doing it, because
I think they're doing it like at the ATC right now.
Yeah.
But
I
it's
know
out there.
they ran I think it was called the VICA competition or something. And that one, I think, was at the time was sponsored by Harley Davidson.
Oh, really?
So if you won that, then you got a scholarship to MMI.
Oh, really?
So,
Which is worth some money.
yeah, sure. So if you can get out there and do it, I think that would definitely be the ideal route. Like, start with something like Slick, get your foundation, and then go to MMI and then branch from MMI into Harley specific or whatever route you want to go. But
yeah, that's how it is at MMI. You go down and you take, I don't know if it's the same, because it's been a long time since I was there, but you basically take like 9 months of like general motorcycle class. And then once you're done with that, you branch into the brand of your choice.
Okay. Yeah.
Or you could do all the brands if you wanted to pay for it.
Sure.
Or if you want to specialize in Harleys or Yamahas or whatever, you could just do the brand of your choice. I know a lot of guys, when I was there, they took Harley, and they also opted to take like at least one of the other brands, whether it be Honda.
Sure.
It seems like Honda and Yamaha were the big ones. But a lot of guys went through the Harley curriculum and Honda, and which gave them an even broader knowledge.
Yeah.
Because I mean, they're all the same in principle, but Harleys and Hondas are still very different.
Sure.
And if you're going to try and go out there and do it as a career and be, proficient, and it's good to have that. But
and it probably helped with if you took the Honda stuff, and with Harley now starting to mix in like water cooled engines and stuff, then probably helped to take some of those.
There's so many guys in the Harley dealerships right now, dudes that have been working on Harleys for decades, who
Just
struggling, and they're pissed off because of all this new stuff that's coming down the pipeline, and it is not what they ever wanted to work on.
Sure.
And I think there's going to be in the coming years, a big shift in the Harley technician world, because it is not what it was 10 years ago or even 20 years ago.
Sure.
It's a different world, and you're going to have to get up to speed on water cooled, advanced electronics, crazy infotainment centers where, you got navigation and Bluetooth and all that, and you got to work on this stuff when it doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah.
These old school Harley dudes grew up working on shovel heads and Evos, and that's all just nuts and bolts.
Yeah. And now it's like you have to take some IT courses also.
For sure. Yeah.
And understand it.
Yeah, definitely. So I think there's going to be a big shift in the Harley technician world in the next few years because of that. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the techs shift, how all that goes.
And I know some that won't shift. They'll retire or find new work. I think some of it is because they're it's almost like they're pissed off at Harley for changing.
Sure.
They're like, this is not what Harleys are. It's like, well, they also have to adapt with the times. They can't continue to make carbureted Evos for the rest of their life.
Yeah, and you saw that in the auto industry too.
Yeah.
As soon as everything switched fuel injection, you still had the carb only guys, and and that's fine too. But I think for Harley, same way, you're going to see a shift in who's working for Harley. But I still think it's a good path, the direction they're going. They're still making great product for what they're doing.
Sure.
Right. And
they're trying to keep a heritage and a lifestyle but keep up with modern times at the same time.
Sure.
And that's not easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think the cool thing, seeing the direction they go, I think it creates more like what you guys get into, the performance stuff.
Yeah.
Because performance is getting better. As soon as you have fuel injection added in, now you can tune those cylinders separate, So you'll perform better than sticking with the carb stuff. But I also wonder if, as some of these other guys who never wanted to work on the new stuff shift out of that industry, they still want to go work on bikes. So you're going to see other bike shops pop up.
Other bike shops, or maybe some of those, some of those guys coming into shops like mine looking for work. Maybe they don't want to own a shop, but they're going to look for the independent aftermarket shops that are going to be tailoring to the guys still riding those motorcycles.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it'll be interesting to see where, like, what starts to pop up on the market and what kind of fizzles out.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Well, cool, man. I appreciate you coming on this morning.
Yeah.
We've been talking about it for a little while now. Excited to see, hopefully you can get the magazine and the brand up and running. I know it's a lot of work, so I'll be rooting for it.
Tackle,
for sure.
Yeah,
and we'd love to help out,
so.
With wherever we can.
Cool.
And we'll talk more about the art show coming in June.
Yeah.
And hopefully people will get excited about that. Love to have you involved there with some photography or something. But appreciate you coming on.
Yeah,
Thanks,
man.
man.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Right on.